In the bustling plazas of Puebla, amidst the vibrant chatter and colorful stalls, a solitary figure arrived, an unassuming man draped in worn but deftly tailored clothes, carrying an assortment of hand-carved marionettes. His arrival was quiet, yet from his first performance, locals sensed something utterly unordinary. Villagers gathered, spellbound not just by the visual spectacle but by an intangible undercurrent of dread. The puppeteer's fingers barely moved, yet the marionettes danced and gestured with an uncanny precision. Eyes seemed to gleam with unnatural vitality, limbs twisting in subtle, impossible ways. Witnesses described the air growing thick with a silent tension, as if the puppets responded to invisible whispers only they could hear. One of the first skeptics was Doña Isabel, a longtime resident and local teacher. Initially intrigued, she attended the puppet show with a mixture of amusement and mild suspicion. As the puppets performed, she noticed how one marionette's head twisted slowly, almost sentient, tracking a small child in the crowd. The child's wide eyes reflected growing unease. Despite no visible movement from the puppeteer's hands, the puppet's lips moved in a slow, whispering rhythm, uttering words no one else could hear. Isabel later confided, "It wasn't like watching a show. It felt as though the puppets were alive, watching us back." This moment marked the dissolution of skepticism for many. News spread rapidly when a visiting tourist recorded video footage of the performance, intending to capture a charming folk display. When the video was uploaded online, viewers worldwide reported immediate physical symptoms, headaches, nausea, and dizziness. Paranormal researchers who later examined the footage agreed. The puppets' movements defied explanation. Some theorized the marionettes were vessels, conduits for an unseen entity. The subtle but pervasive unease rippled beyond Puebla's borders, intertwining the digital age's reach with ancient fears lurking within human consciousness. Locals began reporting strange encounters after the shows, faint whispers echoing in empty plazas, fleeting shadows darting away when approached, and the sensation of unseen eyes watching from darkened corners. Maria, a market vendor who lived near the plaza, described waking to soft, almost hypnotic murmurs drifting through her open window late at night. She confessed, "It was like the puppets called to me. The words I couldn't understand but somehow felt heavy, laden with sorrow or warning." For many, these experiences ignited a deep-rooted dread, transforming the puppeteer's once festive spot into a place avoided as twilight fell. Paranormal investigators arrived in Puebla, drawn by the growing legend, equipped with voice recorders and thermal cameras. During one evening's vigil, they captured audio rife with anomalies, disembodied whispers layered beneath ambient noises, phonemes undetectable by the human ear. Sensitive instruments registered sudden drops in temperature surrounding the puppeteer's usual performance area. Yet, despite scientific scrutiny, no natural explanation prevailed. The psychological toll on investigators was palpable. Several reported insomnia and an oppressive feeling that someone, or something, watched and judged their presence. Intriguingly, some psychologists posited that the puppet shows fed into collective unconscious fears, similar to the phenomena of mass hysteria or shared delusions, especially given the supernatural cultural backdrop of Puebla. However, this theory faltered in the face of first-person accounts describing physiological effects not easily dismissed as psychological. The whispers, though indecipherable, seemed to bear an emotional resonance, evoking in witnesses fear, empathy, and profound sadness simultaneously. This paradox deepened the mystery. Why would inanimate objects communicate such unsettling messages? Several weeks after the strange performances ceased abruptly, neighbors grew concerned at the puppeteer's sudden isolation. One afternoon, a local called for emergency services after spotting the door of the performer's modest home ajar and hearing no answer despite knocking. Responders found the puppeteer lying unconscious on the floor, pale and unresponsive, surrounded by dozens of marionettes suspended from the ceiling by their strings. The eerie arrangement had each puppet facing the man's prone form, their hollow eyes seeming fixed in silent judgment. No evident physical injuries explained his collapse, and attempts to awaken him met only with vacant stillness. Medical evaluations revealed no trauma or intoxication, yet, the man remained mute and catatonic indefinitely. A profound psychological disturbance was suspected, possibly linked to an intense, unseen experience beyond ordinary comprehension. The local community was struck by a mixture of heartbreak and fear, unsure whether the puppeteer was a victim of supernatural forces or human fragility pushed beyond its limits. His sudden silence contrasted horrifyingly with the puppet's persistent whispers and movements, leading many to believe some entity had taken possession of him or severed his voice to contain an unspeakable secret. In the days that followed, rumor flourished. Some claimed the puppeteer had been cursed or bound by dark magic. Others whispered of a pact with restless spirits. Investigators questioned whether the marionettes were vessels not just of performance, but of entrapment, each puppet a fragment of the man's fractured soul. Psychics and spiritual healers arrived, offering prayers and rituals to release any malevolent presence, but the man remained mute, trapped in liminal space between Earth and whatever horrors he'd glimpsed. His case became emblematic of the dangerous border between human creativity and forces beyond control. The plaza where the puppeteer performed morphed into a place of quiet dread. Local merchants shuttered stalls earlier, families no longer ventured at dusk. Witnesses recounted seeing shadows elongate unnaturally, creeping along old cobblestones as if alive. Some described fleeting figures that vanished when approached, or the chilling sensation of being watched by countless unseen eyes under the soft light of fading sun. Children dared not linger after dark, and elders whispered warnings to avoid the cursed ground lest the puppet's gaze find one too. Despite official closures or attempts by municipal authorities to encourage return to normalcy, a collective psychological scar lingered. The plaza became synonymous with unease, a palpable void where joy once thrived. Local lore absorbed the puppeteer into its mythology. He became a cautionary figure, a tragic emblem of human curiosity pushed into forbidden realms. Street artists and writers retold his story, embedding a cultural memory laden with both fascination and fear, preserving a warning. Some strings should never be pulled. Folklorists studying Puebla noted this haunting as a contemporary addition to the rich tapestry of Mexican supernatural beliefs, a convergence of ancient spiritual echoes and modern technological amplification via viral videos. The phenomenon inspired new modes of ritual and storytelling, blending the tangible and intangible, and reshaping communal understanding of reality's boundaries. The puppeteer's silence vocally echoed louder than words, inviting ongoing reflection on the unseen forces that brush against human life, waiting for the faintest twitch of a string to awaken. Today, the puppeteer remains a figure shrouded in mystery, never having spoken a word since his collapse. Paranormal investigators trace the phenomenon as a compelling case study on unseen forces influencing not just objects but human psyche. Scholars debate if the marionettes were possessed, or if the puppeteer himself somehow merged with a spirit realm, leaving his corporeal shell behind. This intersection of folklore, psychology, and unexplained manifestations has become a cornerstone for modern Mexican supernatural narratives, challenging skeptical frameworks with visceral human experience. The psychological echoes persist among locals and those touched by the tale. Many suffering inexplicable anxiety or nightmares share the distrust toward the plaza. Some experience phantom whispers or fleeting visions reminiscent of the puppet's gaze. The story endures as a cultural parable about boundaries, between control and surrender, the living and the inanimate, and the seen and the unseen. It warns that art, when interfaced with unknown forces, can transform into a doorway rather than a mere performance. In the wider context of paranormal phenomena, the Puppeteer of Puebla underscores a haunting truth. Certain enigmas defy neat explanation. They linger in the collective shadow, unsettling and unresolved. The legacy compels us to confront our own fears about what animates the inanimate and whether some strings, once pulled, weave us inexorably into the threads of the unknown, forever bound to watch or be watched, whispered to or silenced, in the vast, shadowed theater of the inexplicable.